Good evening. This is the January 27th, 2022 meeting of the St. Mary's County Board of Appeals, located in the Commissioners of St. Mary's County Meeting Room, the Chesapeake Building, 41770 Baldrige Street, Leonardtown, Maryland. I'm Chairman Dan Ikniowski, and with 4 other board members here, we will have the meeting tonight and that we have a quorum to proceed. Public meetings are now open to the public. In lieu of in-person attendance, citizens may just listen to the meeting on their phones, but not speak to the board by calling 1-301-579-7236, and then use the access code 963-443#. Or you can view the meeting remotely on Channel 95 and YouTube. If any in-person citizen would like to participate by talking to the board, when I open the public testimony portion of the meetings, please call the following number, 301-475-4200, extension 1234. When you call this number, Ms. Sherry Young, recording secretary, will ask your name, address, phone, and email. In other words, this is a virtual sign-in sheet. Ms. Young will then place you in line on hold after I announce that I'm opening the hearing to public testimony. I will open the meeting up for public testimony after all of the presentations and testimony by the applicants and representatives have been completed. For both in-person calls or call-in, you will be asked to state your name and address for the record, and I will swear you in. You will have 3 minutes to ask your questions or make your comments directly to the board. Your comments will be recorded and heard by those of us in the Chesapeake Building, Zoom participants, Channel 95, and on YouTube. After the public comment portion of the meeting is over, the case will be turned to the board for any closing comments, members' discussion, and decision. I would like to now ask the board members to introduce themselves, starting on my right.
Good evening, Wayne Medinsky.
Good evening, Lynn Delahaye.
And again, Dan Ikniowski.
Good evening, Rich Richardson.
Good evening, Guy Bradley.
Good evening, Steve Scott, Board Attorney.
And we also have Mr. Ronald Payne here, our alternate member in the back. From St. Mary's County supporting staff, we have Mr. Harry Knight and Stacy Clements. The supporting staff also includes Mr. Neil Murphy, the Deputy County Attorney, is here. Amy Carter is in our video media producer, and she's in the room next door. In the Savage Conference Room is Sherry Young, Board of Appeals Recording Secretary. We have 4 public hearings tonight and 1 request ahead of time for a reevaluation of set of orders, and we will hold that one first. The next item on the agenda will be case number 1, Hockney v. AAP 21-1268. Case number 2 will be the Crowley v. AAP 21-1319. Case 3 will be the Asden v. AAP 21-1863. Case number 4 will be Sims variance 21-1886. Before we start the hearing, for viewers at home, you will be able to see the staff and application presentations on 95 or YouTube as these presentations are being shown. You can also see the documents that have been submitted for the case by going to Board Docs. Ms. Clements will now demonstrate how to locate and use Board Docs. Stacy?
Good evening, Chairman. To navigate to Board Docs, first you need to open up the St. Mary's County webpage, and that's located at stmarysmd.com. That's stmarysmd.com. And on this page, you would go to the ribbon, and up here at the end of the ribbon is Board Docs. And that will take you to this page. It might take a moment for it to load. And in the middle, we would find the meeting for tonight, and it's the Board of Appeals meeting for Thursday, January 27th, 2020. Once there, we would like to view the agenda, and tonight's agenda would be located on the left-hand side. You can click on number 4 under the public hearings, and under the public hearings then would populate the exhibits and the attachments for each hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, as I indicated, the first matter we will have this morning is, this evening, is the Brackett subdivision reconsideration. And I'd like to ask Mr. Longmore to come on up. Mr. Longmore, if you could please give us a brief summation of what the Brackett had requested, what was approved, and what your reconsideration is.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. For the record, Chris Longmore here again on behalf of Justin and Amy Brackett. They are here in the audience this evening. As the board will recall, we were here December 9th to present this to the board. We were requesting a variance from the subdivision ordinance private road standards to allow my clients to use the existing private road known as Harvest Lane in relation to a proposed farmstead subdivision and building a home on that farmstead lot. My clients were very appreciative of the board's consideration that night. I know you put a lot of time into it, and it meant a lot to my clients. When the board ended up voting on the motion, I think there was some confusion as to the draft motion that was presented by the county in relation to what we had requested that evening. To be clear, and I went back and watched the video of the hearing again just to make sure I did present our request that night. And I believe we did share with the board that our hope was that the variance would allow my clients to use the road in its existing condition in order to access the farmstead without making any alterations to the private road. As the board will recall, there were many members of the neighborhood that came that night and spoke. As I recall, and from reviewing it again, that this was confirmed. I think there was some confusion as to the request as to what it meant, and a lot of folks came to oppose the widening of the road, not necessarily to oppose the farmstead. Some did, but it seemed like there was a universal feeling that none of the neighborhood or residents wanted the road altered in relation to this home being built. When the order was voted on, it was the order that was in the draft minutes, and it was when the public hearing had already been closed, so we weren't able to kind of share our thoughts at that point when the issue was arisen. The motion that was made said that the board, having finding that a granting of a variance is in accordance with the purpose and intent of the St. Mary's County subdivision ordinance. I apologize. And my eyes are not as good as they used to be. I apologize. And that all the items having been met, the variance was granted, and that the road could be lessened from 18 feet to 10 feet was what the language was. It did not address the other provisions of Section 30.14 of the subdivision that arguably would need to be granted a variance in order to use the existing road without altering it. Now, there is a PowerPoint presentation. I don't intend to run through all of it unless the board would like me to. My client put quite a bit of work into taking some photos to show the board as part of our motion to reconsider that there are adequate areas to turn around already in the existing conditions of the road. I can show the board that if you'd like, and maybe we will just flip through the photos very quickly, and we can go to the next slide. This shows you some photos of the road that we discussed that night. If we go to the next slide and just kind of roll through them, you can see the different areas where my client did take the care to go out and actually physically measure the road where it exists. If we go to the next one. This is another portion of the road, as you can see, where it's wider and there's a lot of flat road on either side, and there was testimony in the record that cars will kind of pull over for each other as they come forward, and there's never really been a large problem with that. If we go to the next slide, You can see, again, an area there where the road is a little more narrow, but there are turnarounds with the driveways that are there. If we go to the next slide, this is where the road, also shows the width of it and kind of the ground conditions there where it's a little more narrow. But if you slide to the next slides, you'll see that there are areas like this one where there is a considerable width. There's a 48-foot wide turnaround down the road, roughly midway through it, where there are some vehicles that could turn around already as it exists. And if we go to the next slide. This is another, area that shows some flat areas on the sides of the road as they exist today. And there are 24 feet available to the left of the pole, as you can see. So it's not heavily confined by wooding or ditches in most of the road. If we go to the next slide. This is another area that's fairly wider, and as you can see, the left of the driveway, it's grass, and there are some areas there to turn around as well. And finally, if we go back toward the back of the property, you'll see as you get closer to the area where my client is proposing to develop, again, there's flat grass level conditions on pretty much not the run of the road, but the majority of the road. If we go to the next, we're getting close to the end. And then this is where the sign is posted for my client's property. And you can see there's another turnaround there near where their farmstead would be off to the right. If we go to the next slide.
That's the end of it.
Is that it? So my client, we attached this to our motion. I know the motion that we filed is not the type of motion this board sees often. The Board of Appeals rules does allow for an applicant or other interested parties to file for a motion to reconsider your order. We did not make that decision lightly, and by no means do I want you to feel that my clients were not very appreciative of the relief that you granted them. If the order is not changed, our concern is that in the review process, they may be required to put turnabouts around every 1,000 feet down the road that are of significant dimensions. And for them to be done at that dimension, it would cut into many of their neighbors' yards. They have the right-of-way availability to do that. They would prefer not to do that for two big reasons. One, they would prefer not to have that expense, of course, personally, but they also don't want to cause that imposition on their neighbors that seem very much against it. So for those reasons, we're asking the board under its motion to reconsider the order and to amend it to allow my clients to variance from all the provisions of section 30.14 of the subdivision ordinance to use the existing private road known as Harvest Lane to access their property without any alterations to it. And I think that language or something similar to that, if the board is so inclined, would grant the relief my clients were hoping for, and we think would be relief that would be better served for the neighborhood as a whole. As the board knows, and I'm sure your attorney will share or reiterate, with this type of motion, the board has a couple of options tonight. There's actually three options in the rules. One is you could remand it back to a hearing examiner if a hearing examiner had heard this case. That obviously wasn't the case. Your second option is that you can consider the motion here tonight and amend the order or deny our request tonight, or you have the other option to schedule another public hearing and do that. Respectfully, we don't believe that another public hearing would be required, and we appreciate the opportunity to make these remarks under this motion process since the record was already closed and I wasn't able to get up and speak at the end of the hearing last time because the issue about the turnabouts came out at the very end. So for that reason, we'd request that you do grant the request and that the board do so tonight here at its meeting in your discussions. I'm certainly available for questions.
I think we have, I guess, first of all, how would we like to handle that? Would we like to address it tonight, have a hearing officer hear it, or go back through another public hearing process?
I think we could handle it tonight and just be done with it. We've already heard all the facts.
Tonight, yes.
Okay. Then the second decision is for a motion that would ask us to reconsider and amend the decision that was made and have the order reflect the decision that the existing road be used for access to the Beckett subdivision and that no modifications be made to that road.
Excuse me, Chairman. since that's the direction you're going, but you did need to have a motion, a second, and a majority vote.
I understand
to do
that.
it
I was just
tonight.
trying to recap that.
Yeah.
So I'll be looking for a motion from the member, one of the members, to that effect.
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Okay?
I second.
What you said, I motion.
Well, I'd like to have a little more discussion
Yeah, I
Go ahead.
want more
before we
discussion
do that.
before we have a
Okay.
motion.
All right.
Mr. Medensky?
You know, without having, without having the rest of the people here with the road, you know, that are on the road, it's hard to make a decision. You know, I understand that there are some turnarounds there. I wonder if we could incorporate those and maybe lessen the impact. You know, but I don't know how many, what is it, every 1,000 feet?
That's what our motion was.
I believe so.
I mean, you know, they might work, you know, you might have one at 500 feet and then,
Every 5 to 6, every 5 to 600 feet.
but evidently there's already, you know, spaces for some there where the intersections are, where it intersects with
Yeah,
the people living on the road.
true.
At all of those places, you know, that could be considered a turnaround. But I don't know if you want to, and you know, I feel funny making a decision without the other road owners being here.
Okay, so we're back to where we were originally.
Well, that's just
But
me.
tonight-
That's just me. That's just me.
I understand.
Let's,
Yeah.
We have, maybe if I could ask for,
I've really given this, I've given this case a lot of thought. And, I mean, I realize that turnarounds are not what everybody wanted, but in an effort to help meet the request for the variance, that was what we came up with. The fact that it says bracket subdivision, right there, that tells me that it's a subdivision. And if someone else was coming for us for the subdivision, they'd have to meet certain requirements of a subdivision according to our comprehensive plan. I know there's several families on that road also existing, and I know that those turnarounds were going to impact the families there. And it wasn't, it's not ideal, it was not the ideal solution. But all that being said, I think that one of the requirements for subdivision is the safety, not of the residents, but of our first responders. And that was the situation that we were trying to do there. But looking at these pictures, there are several areas where the road is in ill repair. I think it was like the third from the last picture. I mean, fire trucks are really heavy, ambulances are really heavy. And we have to think, too, of the crew that are responding to these things. And I didn't vote for the turnaround to start with. I still think we should have an asphalt road there. I think that's the safety piece that we gleaned over the last time.
It's a private road, isn't it? So to modify the road, you'd have all the landowners would have to chip in thousands of dollars to modify the road.
I don't think there was any kind of road agreement, right?
There is one existing on the majority of the road. There is an agreement in place that was in there. We had talked about putting another one in place reflective of my clients when they do their subdivision.
When you have a
But-
subdivision, you have to have a road maintenance agreement.
Right.
You have to, so that was already in place.
So there is one, and the neighbors have the ability to improve it as they see fit under that agreement.
Yeah, now technically, the road maintenance agreements are only since 2002, and there are properties on this road that are grandfathered from those later agreements.
Well, but there is an existing agreement that affects the majority of the lots out there, separate and aside from
Yeah.
the Luggum land use ones. One of the neighbors presented it to me the night of the hearing, and we communicated about that afterwards. So there is an existing road maintenance agreement. You know, what, my clients would respectfully ask is that they're only asking for one home on a property that they already travel the road multiple times a day as they testified. We respectfully don't believe that the impact of this one home would warrant that much of a change to this existing private road that has functioned well for the homes that are on it already. That's really the thrust of why we're requesting the reconsideration.
But currently, the UPS drivers and the mailman hasn't got a problem so far.
There was none that anybody shared or testified to at the hearing that night, none we're aware
Do
of.
we have a motion on the table?
But the fact that they have,
Not yet. No, we don't.
the fact that it says subdivision, we're going to set a precedence for other people who come through here with subdivision written on their name, on their variance, and they want to not put in a road that's adequate for public safety.
And also,
Regardless, they've got land back there that, if I remember correctly, and Mr. Longway, you can correct me, I think there's a piece of land there towards the left or so that is developable. Is that a word?
Yes.
That they can be developed, And so, I mean, what's saying 10 years from now, they don't develop? A grandchild comes along and says, oh, granddaddy, I want to live on the farm, and there we go. And now you got that seventh house.
And what I believe would happen, the only way that could happen without requiring a full new road, and Mr. Knight can correct me, and I don't want to misstate this, is the reason why my clients are allowed to ask for this and why there's not more improvements needed is because it is a farmstead, and our ordinance and comprehensive plan strongly encourage those. So they have lesser standards for the roads when you're building a farmstead instead of a traditional house. If there was a lot that tripped the full private road standards, there would be widths and road standards and more than just the standards that we're talking about here tonight. That was not required because it is a farmstead, and that was, I believe, intentional in our code. We had cited the comprehensive plan provisions that support it, and then the code has provisions that back that up. But if someone else did come in and think they had the opportunity to develop, if they thought they had that right, in order for them to do so, they would likewise have to come and get a variance from the provisions, or they would not be allowed to do it. As my clients testified, they travel that road multiple times a day because they care for horses back there already. They'll be living there, and there'll be more trips because of it, certainly, because it'll be their home instead of a place they visit multiple times a day. But we don't believe that, and we think the testimony supported this, that there's enough of an impact on this road to warrant those improvements this great on this type of private road that serves the homes that are already there. And that's our position. I understand you all have your concerns, but but they would have to come in for a variance, I believe.
They would not be able to come in for a variance. So to answer that question, in the subdivision regulations that they're seeking a variance from tonight, so you know, if you grant it to the entire section, you would be granted a variance from this section as well. In the event the maximum allowable number of lots having access is exceeded or is otherwise approved by a variance, all further subdivisions of land must front on a public road and are subject to the regulations. So if it's important to you that this be the last variance on this private road, you would want your motion to not grant a variance from that specific standard.
So now, if there are existing lots along that road, they are precluded from being developed?
No, they're not precluded from being developed, but they would have to front on a private road if this road exceeds the maximum lots, including an additional lot granted by variance.
That's already the case. Is that not?
But none of those were granted by variance.
But now you're setting it up to, that they would have to be.
they wouldn't have to be.
My point is,
If we do this, it opens the gate.
No, I think Mr. Knight's saying it'll close the gate.
it
because-
could close the gate if you exempt it from all standards except this standard. One of the key questions that came up was, well, and actually, let me raise my hand. I'm the individual who drafted what I called that night at the conclusion of the hearing a flawed motion. What the applicant applied for is on your screen right now, seeking to request appeal/variance of the provisions of section 30.14, no clarification of any specific part of it.
Would you raise your right hand?
Oh, certainly, sir.
Sorry about that. Please stand and raise your right hand. And Stacy also. Do you declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony, responses, and statements you may give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may continue. I'm sorry about that.
It's all right. So had I drafted a motion to match their request, it would have, you would have had that opportunity to read my drafted motion verbatim, and it would have granted a variance to the entire section. But I didn't draft that motion. I drafted what I characterized as a flawed motion because I specified something that they did not specify in their variance request. And I think that was a mistake on my part.
This, well, on the screen, says nothing about a driveway, a roadway.
The provisions of 30.14 are the provisions relating to private roads. So those words
To
were.
allow the creation of a lot on Harvest Lane.
Right, so 30.14 are the private road provisions of the subdivision ordinance.
So we were asking for a variance from the provisions of section 30.14, which are the private road.
So they can, okay.
That's where, and
But we're still talking about a subdivision.
Oh, it absolutely is a subdivision. It absolutely is a
Subdivisions have
subdivision.
certain rules.
right, and
To
we're-
look at those rules and not set a precedence. That's my stand.
and certainly we can respect that, where I think and I've made this argument to the board before, the rules also allow for variances from the rules, and that's what we're here for. If the rules didn't want to allow for that, there would be no right to ask for a variance, and that's what, so we understand the rules, we're asking for a variance from them tonight. And the order that we appealed from and asked for the variance from also said that, we can apply for a variance for the portion of Harvest Lane that does not meet the private road standards if the intent is not to upgrade the portion of the private road. That's what was the decision of Mr. Hunt signed before. As you'll recall, this was captioned as an appeal and variance because the subdivision ordinance requires us to file both at the same time when we're asking for a variance from it. So we were attempting to address the concerns raised by Mr. Hunt in the language that we added in the request that we filed with land use. And again, I think it got a little lost after the public hearing was closed, so we couldn't kind of clarify that.
So if you wanted to grant a variance from the design standards, but also shut the door for any future variances on this particular private road, the motion would be variance from 30.14.6, design standards.
I don't think shutting the door to any of the variances is the right answer, because there's other people who live on that road.
Right.
Okay?
And that, if we make a decision for one group of people that affects all these other people, and obviously they're not here, we can't do that. That's not the thing to do. Mr. Longmire, I do agree with you, and while I understand what a variance is and why they're here, I think we have to be really careful and not set a precedence for other people. That's my feeling.
So,
would
Mr.
you like
Longmire, you wish to add this paragraph to the initial motion or make a new motion?
I'll defer to the board on the motion. I mean, the design standards are what were raised after the hearing that we were concerned about. I think that would address my client's concern. But if you want to keep the ability for other homeowners to come and have to prove that they're entitled to a variance later if they want one, to give them that opportunity, and Mr. Knight, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we would suggest that the appropriate motion would be a variance from all the provisions of section 30.14 to use the existing private road, as it exists today for ingress to their lot or something to that effect.
I agree.
I think that would allow us to get our variance, and it would allow others in the future to come in and ask for it. They wouldn't have a right to it. They would have to prove it like my clients did. But that would leave that opportunity open.
And Mr. Chair and board members, I think you go back also to the two-pronged nature of this question. I think the first order of business by motion is the process or procedure. Do you want to consider this and amend your motion this evening without a public hearing, or do you want to set this back in for a public hearing and have the notifications that are required for a public hearing go out and give people the opportunity to comment? And I think the question there is, do you think there's enough on the record? Was the request for the variance in the first place directed towards a full relief from the private road ordinance, or do you think that it was more narrow than that? And also, do you think there's enough on the record from the public hearing to allow you to broaden the scope of your order, if that makes sense?
I think we need to have a public hearing to rehear from the rest of the people along the road, because what we're doing and what we're talking about doing could affect their property and what they do with it in the future.
I agree with that.
So with that, I mean, I would think perhaps another public hearing in order to address the reconsideration may be in order. Because right now, what the order that has been written tonight for us, that I'm sure we won't go through, won't do, it says that the applicants are granted a variance from section 30.14 of the subdivision ordinance to reduce the minimum travel width from 18 to 10 feet. That's it, that's all. None of the other provisions of the 3014 are being changed, so they're all still applicable, which would include the turnout.
So that's an option on the table. You could seek a motion, a second, and a vote to sign that order. The second option is to have a motion and a second and vote to reconsider tonight. But I really think that motion and vote should occur before you reconsider. And then as Mr. Scott reminded us, you can have a motion, a second, and a vote to send it to a hearings examiner, or motion, second, and vote to send it back to yourselves for a hearing.
Well, we would not be able to meet the 60-day requirement for the approval of this, if I'm not mistaken. The meeting was December 9th, and the decision made that night. The order is here tonight at the end of January. By the time you advertise for a public hearing, it would be past the 60 days.
Well, that's, in essence, that order is off the table because you would be deciding you want a new public hearing. And a new order would be drafted from the results of that public hearing.
Essentially, you're going to open it back up again for public hearing if you make that decision. And so, although Rule 5-105 is a little short and doesn't give us a lot of guidance, it follows from that would suspend your obligation to issue a written order within 60 days of the original hearing.
Mr. Longmore, would the applicant be happy if you just dropped the whole thing tonight?
The applicant would certainly prefer for a reconsideration of some kind tonight. Would be our strong preference. And we certainly are not in any way trying to suggest that the public should not be involved in this. But from our perspective, the whole concern with the motion came up when the public hearing was already done and over. And that, as Mr. Knight shared, we didn't have input to highlight what was already in the record to say why we thought the order that we're proposing now would be the most appropriate relief. That's what we had asked for verbally, but the sample motion didn't match what we had asked for verbally. Now, I didn't raise the sample motion that was in the staff report, and certainly I didn't do that. But as the board is aware, you're not confined to that. That's suggested language. So, but if a public hearing is what the board desires, we understand that. My clients have been in this process for a long time. They're weary by it. There's expense and delays for them in doing, but we certainly would balance what the board concerns. And we're not trying to suggest that we wouldn't avail ourselves of that if you said we could, but we would prefer to have a decision tonight to be blunt. But we'll respect the board.
Back to my question, if you just dropped it, nothing would happen. Would they be happy with the original decision?
The reason why we're concerned about the original decision is we'd have to build all these turnabouts on other people's front yards. And there's a great expense to that, and they're afraid of what it would do moving into the neighborhood and the concerns it would raise. They understand from their neighbors they would much rather just keep the road the way it is. There was testimony to that effect. So they would prefer a decision that the board vote procedurally to decide it tonight and rule in favor of us if the board is so inclined. If the board does not feel comfortable doing that, we would want to reserve the right to have a public hearing and raise it then. We believe there's enough in the record tonight. Sorry, Mr. Mays.
So Board Attorney just said we have the right to also go in, and if we feel that we have enough public testimony already to amend our decision and do it that way. We listened to pretty much all the neighbors, read all their letters. They were concerned with the width of the road and infringing upon their properties is what I gathered that they were upset about. They were not particularly upset about the development happening on the property. A few were, not the majority. We also had the discussion that this is a farmstead, so it doesn't fall under the subdivision rules in that aspect. That's why there's 8 plots where there should only be 7, because it's a farmstead. The family has come in and said they're not going to do any more development. That property to the left that was, they looked at putting a house on, they can't put a house on due to the way the wells would have to be drilled, I think was the issue with developing the property to the left. So I believe that we have enough information that we can go in and amend this tonight and resolve this tonight, because the neighbors were concerned about their properties and widening of the roads and what it would do to their properties. The confusion was created, in my mind, by 2 things. One, that this was a farmstead, 8 plots, vice 7, and that caused a bit of confusion. The second part of the confusion was the way that the recommendation was worded. It led us down a path where we didn't consider all options. I tried to voice a concern at the end of that, but I'm not a very eloquent speaker, so I kind of botched that up. Thanks. I botched that part up. But I believe we have enough information to make an informed decision that the community could get behind, and we could still satisfy the nature of the law. I understand Lynn's, Ms. Delaney's concern about the subdivision. That's a very real thing, and setting a precedent is not a good thing. But I think the subdivision part of this is just in response to the way that the ordinance is worded. I don't think they mean it to be a subdivision. I think they still mean it to be a farmstead. That's the way I'm kind of hearing things. But you're right, we don't want to set a precedent where other people come in and sneak through the gate. That's not what we're here to do. And from what I've seen and all of the testimony that I've seen, this property owner has done a lot for that community. They want to develop. They just want to put another house there. They want to be exempted from some expensive things their neighbors didn't want anyway, which is the widening of the road and the turnouts. But I understand the emergency personnel and safety of them when they're going down that road. But this is still a private road. It still meets the farmstead rules because it was zoned that way. I think we have enough information to decide this tonight and let this, let's move on from this.
I totally agree. I would not want to put a burden on the neighborhood to pay for modifying the road. I think it wouldn't be right at all.
So if that could be if Mr. Bradley would phrase that as a motion that we consider tonight and he second, then you could vote and see if you have a majority who wants to do that.
The only thing I would like to add to that, to Mr. Bradley's comments, is that does not preclude any of the existing property owners from requesting a variance or from them doing what they need to do or may want to do on their property.
Mr. Chairman, that depends entirely on the clarity of the motion, which you're not prepared to make a motion. First, you have to decide which of the 4 choices you're going to pursue tonight.
I only have one more question. If we go with this and drop the turnabouts, Are they locked into just having that one place back there without having another variance or anything? I mean, they can't, this doesn't open the rest of that property up. That's what I don't.
Well, Mr. Medinsky, we don't know how you lock them in or what conditions you place upon the variance until the potential modified motion is made. But you can't make that motion until someone first moves and seconds and has a majority vote that you want to do that tonight. You don't have to do it tonight. You could go with the motion that's already been drafted in the order. You could go with the order that's already drafted. Option 1, go with the order that's already drafted. Option 2, go with a majority who wants to reconsider tonight. Option 3, a majority has to remand it to a hearings examiner, or option 4, the majority remands it to a new Board of Appeals hearing. But that's the question before you. Which of the 4 options do you want to have a motion on and see if you can get a second?
Would you repeat the motion?
Go ahead, Mr. Lane.
I'd like to make a motion that we have a new public hearing.
Is there a second to the motion?
Yeah, I'll second that.
All in favor? Mr. Bradley?
No.
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 Yes.
Yes. Okay, that failed.
So now we have decided what we're not going to do.
Right. You're down to 3 choices.
Let us decide what we want to do.
Make the motion that we consider all the evidence already presented and that we amend our motion to grant with clarity what the applicant is being asked for.
I second it.
Mr. Bradley?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
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 No.
I'll go with that.
Okay.
Okay.
So we've gotten past those 2. Now we want to make a motion to amend our prior decision and the orders that we would be preparing to sign next meeting.
My concern is still, locking him in just to that one lot back here.
Now, if I remember correctly, and I'm speaking probably out of school here, I shouldn't be saying this, but that lot was a 15-acre lot, and with the remainder of that parcel was 15 acre. Is that correct?
I believe it was,
think
and
that
the
lot-
one did not perk.
Right now, that lot at the end exists at the end of and they're going to cut it in half so that the one brother lives here and the other brother lives there. If they're both 15 acres and they're farmsteads and they're in the RPD, they can't be further subdivided. Is that correct?
Well, there's also another large tract of land that belongs to someone else.
And let's just talk about these 2 first.
Right, so-
Another piece on the right as you're going in.
Yeah.
That's another larger piece.
Yeah, so if you grant a variance to exceed the number of lots on, well, let me just reread this again. So in the event that the maximum allowable number of lots having access is exceeded or is otherwise approved by a variance, all further subdivisions of land must front on a public road and are subject to the regulations and standards for public roads.
This is a lot area under the.
So, anyone else who wants to create a lot that is not exempt, they would that is not allowed to be served by a private road, let me put it that way. Anyone coming forward who wants to propose a subdivision that is allowed on a private road, once again, the Department of Land Use Growth Management will say that private road must meet the private road standards, and this road does not. So if they're allowed to be served by the private road, they would be able to seek the variance. If they're not allowed to be served by the private road because they exceed the number of lots, then they can't get a variance.
Why can't they get a variance?
Because this section precludes them.
Okay.
It's a subdivision.
Yeah.
It's a subdivision.
Yeah, so if you want to try to shut the door from future requests, as Lynn Delahaye mentioned, I'm not suggesting she advocates it, then you would, my recommended motion for you would be variance from subdivision standards 30.14.6, which only gets rid of the design standards. It does not get rid of the general provisions.
So we'd be letting this particular one time And if someone else still wanted to do it, they'd have to come back in front of us, just like they are here.
If they qualify.
Right. So that doesn't stop everybody from coming here for a variance. It just,
Everybody can come for a variance anyway.
right,
This is tying their hands.
right.
This is really impacting the neighbors and what they can do. with their
Well, that's why if you don't want to tie their hands, you go with the original motion of just 30.14 in its entirety. Grant variance, which is what the applicant requested. They requested a
On the
variance.
application, it says subdivision. It does not say farmstead, if you pull that back up.
A farmstead, creation of a farmstead lot is a subdivision.
Right there, subdivision.
Yeah, to take a larger piece of land and break it into smaller pieces, sub-pieces of the larger is subdivision.
And that term also can even include a one-lot subdivision where you create a lot out of an existing parcel, so it doesn't even need to really be a subdivision. So it's more of a term of art. But in this case, we were seeking, and if granted what we asked for, if I'm understanding Mr. Knight, and I agree with him, if we're given a variance from all the provisions of 30.14, if there was a way for somebody else to have another chance to come in and get a variance, they would be allowed to do that. They'd have to prove it before you. Doesn't have to be granted. If they can't prove it at that time, you can deny it, just like you could have denied our original request. If you do the alternate motion that Mr. Knight suggested, there is a provision that says once a variance is granted on there are certain other variances that people aren't allowed to seek. So that would limit other people in the future if you only limited it to the design standards. We're not trying to do that. We believe exemption from all of it would be fair and let other people come in that doesn't tie anybody else's hands like you're worried about, Ms. Delahaye. So a variance from all the provisions of 30.14 to use the existing road by my clients would allow them to do that and allow others to come in if they wanted to, but it does not give them the right to go ahead and build something. They'd have to come in and prove their case if they wanted to. It'd be very difficult to do that because really the only exception I know of to upgrading it to a full private road are the farmstead standards. There's just not enough acreage on the road to do that. So I think in reality
Are
that.
you happy with the decisions we've made so far?
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Richards.
Okay, we'll have a motion for modification. Anybody want to tackle that?
So I'd like to have a motion for modifying our previous decision to include a variance from the provisions of section 30.14 of the St. Mary County subdivision ordinance.
A second.
Is that the way it should be worded? Did I word that properly?
Do you agree with that?
Sounded fine to me.
Yeah, I believe you did, yes.
Okay.
Okay, then, Mr. Medinsky.
No.
No.
Delahaye.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, that takes care of the matter. Thank you very much,
Okay.
Mr. Longmore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board.
Then we will have a new order for the next meeting.
We will hope the county attorney's office can have it ready for the February 10th meeting at the chairman's request.
Okay.
Thanks.
Next item on the agenda will be case number 1, the hockey variance number 21-1268. And then who will be giving a presentation for the county?
I will be. Okay. You ready?
Presentation. We show.
Oh, okay, great, thank you.
Good evening, board members. Tonight, we're here to hear BAAP number 21-1268, the hockey property. They're asking for a variance from the comprehensive zoning ordinance from section 71.8.3 to construct a 47 linear foot retaining wall. The legal ad was printed in the local newspaper, Southern Maryland News, on January 7th and 14th, 2022, and the county posted the property and sent notifications to the neighbors within 200 feet on or before January 12th. The owners of the property are Thomas and Dolores Hockey. The property is located at 47339 South Snow Hill Manor Road in St. Mary City. It is located in the Rural Preservation District zoning with a limited development area overlay. And the property consists of 1.79 acres and currently has a house and a garage. Okay. Our location map, once again, it's at 47339 South Snow Hill Manor Road in St. Mary's City, right on the eastern side of the St. Mary's River. It's located in the Rural Preservation District. The existing conditions, it's a heavily wooded lot. And this is the area of the proposed retaining wall. They are proposing a 47 linear foot retaining wall within the 100-foot buffer. It is exempt from stormwater management and soil conservation district due to the less than 5,000 square feet of soil disturbance, and the Critical Area Commission has provided a letter. As you can see, the proposed retaining wall would take place within the 100-foot critical area buffer. And their site plan depicts their 70-foot linear wall with some plantings. Okay. The mitigation for this project would be 237 square feet of permanent disturbance, 408 square feet of temporary disturbance, for a grand total of 1,122 square feet of required mitigation. A buffer management plan for on-site plantings will be approved by Lugham staff prior to the issuance of a building permit. And we can go over the standards once we get into discussion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. and Mrs. Hocking, would you please stand and raise your right hand? Do you declare and affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony, responses, and statements you may give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Do you have a presentation?
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, we've never done this before. I apologize in
Just let
advance.
us know when you
No
want
problem.
to advance a slide.
Oh, okay.
This is what the board can see on their screens.
Okay, so we can go to the next slide, please.
Okay.
Thank you. What we're requesting approval is to construct a 47 linear foot retaining wall with drainage behind the wall to provide stormwater management by redirecting the water flow and to prevent any further erosion or collapse of the bank or the land, which would reestablish access to our pier, which is currently, because the wall behind the walkway down to the pier collapsed, we have no access to the pier at this point. And we are wanting to prevent this from occurring in the future and prevent additional clay sediment from seeping into the river, which has happened with this collapse. Next slide, please. So going through the standards to grant this request, the first standard is that there are the circumstances are peculiar to the land or structure involved, and that strict enforcement of the critical area provision of this ordinance would result in unwarranted hardship. And we believe our property meets this standard. The property is significantly constrained by the critical area buffer located on the St. Mary's River, and the property contains a steeply sloped bank consisting primarily of clay soil. This bank has collapsed behind the walkway to the pier due to stormwater runoff through and over the soil. and the collapse has completely blocked the path and access to our existing pier, and additionally has caused clay soil to slide into the St. Mary's River, which with every rain. And the blocked entrance has created a hardship for us since we can no longer access our dock with typically needed boating equipment. The bank in front of our property first collapsed in 2014 due to erosion from the river undercutting the base of the bank. And at that time, we obtained a permit to install both a pier and revetment to prevent further land loss. And in the fall of 2020, the bank behind the walkway extending to the pier collapsed due to the result of extensive rain and stormwater. And therefore, the slide of the clay soil from that collapse has blocked our access to the pier, and also the soil slid into the river. Next slide. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not paying attention to the slides. These are
I jumped ahead of
pictures.
you.
That's okay. This is a picture, and there are several pictures of the collapse, and you can see that the clay soil has just slid right into our walkway to the pier and blocked access. There's another picture of that for you to see. And there's a third picture. And this area was not, we have a wooded area on both sides of the property, which we do not intend to disturb at all, but what was planted here was mainly grasses and ground cover. Next slide.
Yes.
There's another picture of the collapse of that wall. So the next provision of the ordinance, that strict interpretation of the critical area provision will deprive the supplicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in similar areas within the critical area of St. Mary's County. Numerous adjoining properties have also experienced substantial bank collapses over the years, involving tens to 100 of cubic yards of material because of the layered clay soil and sandy soils. And most of the existing properties on the river nearby have also experienced moderate to severe riverbank erosion and collapse, requiring similar interventions. We are not requesting to further disturb the critical area, but rather to safeguard the existing walkway path to our pier, to reestablish access, and hopefully to prevent any further impact on the river by stabilizing the bank to prevent the slide of clay or other soil into the river. The next standard is the granting of the variance will not confer upon the applicants any special privilege that would be denied by the critical area provision of this ordinance to other lands or structures within the critical area of St. Mary's County. And we do not believe that this would confer any special privileges for us, as many adjoining properties have had similar erosion problems and have had to install similar management projects along the waterfront, including revetments and walls. The next standard is that the request is not based on conditions or circumstances that are the result or actions by the applicants. And we believe we certainly did not create this difficulty. The existing pier and revetment and walkway path were permitted and approved in 2014. But the environmental conditions that led to the erosion of the bank behind the walkway are due to the steep riverbank, the soil composition, and are part of the property and no fault of us as applicants. We have certainly tried to limit erosion by having that area planted, and that has proven insufficient because of the stormwater and the torrential rains that we had to prevent collapse resulting from runoff intrusion into the bank and behind the bank, consistent with adjoining properties and some of their experiences. The granting of the variance will not adversely affect water quality or adversely impact fish, wildlife, or plant habitat within the critical area, and the granting of the variance will be in harmony with the general spirit and intent of the critical area program. We do not feel that this would adversely affect water quality or impact fish. On the contrary, we hope that providing this intervention will protect the river from further erosion, soil going into the river, and oxygen levels and the impact on the fish. We're trying to protect the river and also regain access to our pier. The variance is the minimum necessary to achieve a reasonable use of land or structures. And that's what we're seeking. We would not disturbing any other areas that are wooded and protect the erosion at present. We would plant approved plants behind this wall and make sure that there was a vegetated buffer to further protect runoff. And I think that's it. We wish to thank you for considering our request and certainly answer any questions that you may have.
Board members have any questions of staff or the Hockeys?
Yeah, Ms. Hockley, I understand your problem because I also live on the water. But going back to the pictures that are colored pictures and it shows a blue thing, is that where the wall's going to go, or are you required to go dig up more of your land?
No, where the blue is, there's 3 feet of clay below that. So the clay has to be pulled out of there, and then the wall will run along there.
But the wall will be where the blue marker is?
Yeah, just a little bit this side.
So you're not required to go back in your property anymore?
No.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
No, it would,
They're supposed to then fill it and then grade it gradually to the top of the wall.
Thank you.
where it was in the existing, where the existing walkway was before the collapse is where we propose to put the wall and drainage behind it so that water would kind of drain away and not cause collapse. And then as my husband said, we would put soil and approved plantings in the area behind that to further stabilize that slope.
We hope.
That's our goal.
No, I understand your problem.
Any other questions?
No?
Stacy, you want to go through the, Mrs. Hockey did a very good job going through the.
Yeah, I think she covered most of them, didn't she?
Did too.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think we need to recap them unless there's a particular standard you have a question about.
Not I. Then I guess if there's no discussion, do we have anybody from the public that wants to speak for or against the project? Come forward and state your name and address.
I think they speak it. Microphone there.
Good evening. I'm Lonnie Clark. I live at 47287 South Snow Hill Manor Road, houses away from the Hockeys. Is there something else?
You would raise your right hand. And do you declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony, responses, and statements you may give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do, sir.
Very well, good. Go ahead. Please go ahead.
Only thing that I want to say is I've lived, and my family has lived at that property since 1949, 2 houses away from theirs. We have a high bank as the same as they do, and in that time period, we have lost 30 to 40 feet of bank from the river as it's collapsed. Our bank is heavily vegetated, it's very sloped, and in the 10 years recently that I've lived in the house, the bank is still sliding. I think there's probably another 10 feet that have dropped probably 3 or 4 feet because I mow the grass out there and now the mower's going out. So that's all I want to say. It's what happens to the bank, and it needs to be retained
Okay.
somehow. Thank you.
Any questions?
No, sir.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Start this way.
Your name and address.
John Paradise, 47287 South Snow Hill Manor Road. I'm Lonnie's husband.
Okay, and then would you raise your right hand?
Will?
Do you declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony, responses, and statements you may give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Do.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
I want to thank the board for considering this. This is an ongoing problem with the banks on the St. Mary's River. This bank is going to slide. Let me say that again. This bank is going to slide. Wishful thinking and stonewalling will not prevent it. Left on its own, it will slide up to 2,000 or 3,000 cubic yards into the river. There are only two ways to prevent the bank from sliding. One is anchor and brace the 16-foot bank carefully and thoroughly soon, or remove several thousand cubic yards of material to grade from the existing revetment down by the water to a natural angle of repose. And I use that term and I use those dimensions because that's what the adjoining yards have all seen. Again, as Dolores pointed out, this is a very, well, I don't want to use the term porous. It is a soil that absorbs water. It's in layers, so it holds it. Gets wet enough and heavy enough, it just slides, and big chunks of it slide. You can readily see that in the 3 of the 4 neighboring yards, or up around the corner, half a mile or so up the river on the same side. This soil is not good exposed to the water. Natural cover, the trees and bushes and things that had grown there naturally over the years failed. And the bank slid into the river about 2014, 30 to 50 cubic yards. One event. Dense cover planning failed, and the bank slid onto the pier and revetment in 2020. That's about 10 cubic yards. Ongoing problem. The bank slope is currently 2 to 3 feet vertical for 1 foot horizontal. It is a very steep bank, and it's not good soil that will support that. In the history of the banks along the river, these banks are typically 16 or 20 feet above sea level and very steep, nearly vertical. You can't walk them. Soils consist of layers of sand and sandy clay. Rainwater penetrates and has caused major slides. By major slide, I mean more than 100 cubic yards at a time. Every few years for the 60 years I'm aware of. This is an ongoing problem. It is not solved by letting the river deal with it. It will just cause one of these big slides and eliminate the front yard. And as I pointed out, 3 of 4 immediate adjoining neighbors, and I'm the second house away, have had major slides in the last 50 to 60 years. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Any questions from the board members?
No, sir.
No.
Lynn?
I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak for or against? Anybody on the phone?
Okay.
Board of Appeals.
Yes, Ms. Young, do we have any public calling on the hockey property?
There are no callers for this case at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In that case, I'll close the public testimony portion of the meeting. And any comments, questions from the board members?
I think there's a real problem there, but I think they need to get that to save their property.
I do too. I just, I don't know. I don't know what to do. You know, we used to have 100-year storms, and now we have one of them about every 10 years.
Well,
100-year storms, and we have 500-year storms, I don't know, every 20 years or something. The rain has just been ridiculous.
Yeah. That's what caused it earlier this year.
I'm hoping the plannings, you can help, stabilize this. and with
That's
the
what our
retaining
hope
wall.
is to permanently fix this so that this doesn't happen, because all of our efforts have been unsuccessful
So far.
so far, so
I don't know if you can, any way you could direct some of the water
that's,
to the
That's-
woods,
that's
maybe would help
what I
hold
do.
it some.
Yeah.
What kind of material are they going to use for the retaining wall, did they say?
it's a matrix block wall, and that there will be
What is it? I'm sorry.
The matrix block
matrix
wall.
block wall, sort of heavy. It's 4 retaining walls, they're heavy blocks.
Yeah.
And it'll be 3 foot high, just enough to, prevent any further slide, with drainage behind it so that the water can just be drained and it doesn't further impact that hill and cause another collapse. That's what we hope, that this will permanently fix the problem and we won't have this issue happen before. And we're not disturbing any of the
Existing.
wooded buffer because that's protective. We just want to
Stop
take
that
care of this
section.
section so that we can utilize our pier and also prevent any further slide. The original revetment that was put in has been very, very successful in protecting the waterfront part of the property, but this is further back, just in this one section.
Just a little section there, yeah.
Do the neighbors on either side have a retaining wall?
They don't have retaining walls. Some of them have revetment. They have, what's the other?
They put in natural stone. They just drop blocks of stone all along the waterfront.
My neighbor to the left has a lot of undercutting now, and eventually that's going to drop. Our property is a little bit higher. We're sort of in the center. Most of the other properties have a lesser slope to the water, but it's just this one section where it's got a higher slope, and I think that's why it's undercut. We're a little bit higher up than most of the property owners by. Their slope is a little less sharp, but they've all had problems with erosion. And
St. Mary's River is probably the most beautiful river in St. Mary's County.
Yeah,
So
pretty.
I think it's admirable that you're going to try to save that.
that's what we would like to do, because we intend to retire in a year or two and live in St. Mary's permanently and enjoy the beautiful environment. That's what our hope is.
Motion?
Yes. In the matter of VAAP number 21-1268, having made a finding that the standards for granting a variance and the objectives of section 24.4 of the St. Mary's County Comprehensive Zoning Plan ordinance have been met, I approve the variance request from section 71.8.3 to disturb the critical area buffer to construct a 47 linear foot retaining wall.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Yes.
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 Very good. An order reflecting the board's decision will be prepared by staff and signed by the board within 60 days. A 30-day period follows from the date the order is signed, during which any aggrieved party may appeal the board's decision to the circuit court. The recording secretary will mail you a copy of the order once it has been signed. Good job.
All right,
Good
thank
job.
you.
Thank you,
very
Mr.
much.
Chairman. Thank you,
Good job.
board members,
luck.
for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next on the agenda is Crowley variance.
Good evening.
Good evening. While you're standing there, why don't you take the oath, and then we'll get back to you.
Yes, sir.
Do you declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony, responses, and statements you may give are the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And just for the record, would you state your name and address?
Patrick Kenyon Crowley, 68112 Belford Drive, Tacoma Park, Maryland, and Poplar Avenue, Pine Point.
Okay, thank you. Stacy?
Probably want you to take a seat.
Okay, our next case is VAAP number 21-1319, the Crowley property. They're asking for a variance from the comprehensive zoning ordinance from section 71.8.3 to construct a new dwelling and driveway. The legal ad was printed in the local newspaper, Southern Maryland News, on January 7th and 14th of 2022. The county posted the property and sent notifications to the neighbors within 200 feet on or before January 12th, 2022. The owners of the property are Patrick and Celine Crowley. It is located at 17428 Poplar Street in Piney Point. It is in the Piney Point Shores subdivisions, lots 3 through 5. It is zoned residential low density, and it has an IDA overlay. And it is 6,000 square feet. It is located in Piney Point, just north of St. George's Island and south of Tall Timbers. It is residential low-density zoning. Here's the existing conditions. And they are proposing a new dwelling with a driveway. It is exempt from stormwater and soil conservation district due to less than 5,000 square feet of soil disturbance. Metcom and the Health Department have approved, and the Critical Area Commission does not oppose. The critical area buffer greatly impacts this property, nearly encumbering most of it. And we have the site plan. And there are detail. This is lots 3, 4, and 5. They're proposing a 30 by 40 dwelling with a deck on the outside and a proposed driveway. And they've
Now, before you leave that, I want to point out, so Mr. Crowley is required to comply with the 10% rule. This is because of the IDA, so while it's exempt from stormwater, it's actually required to provide stormwater management to seek a 10% reduction. So the dots that you see in the corner of the house are proposed rain barrels. Now, they won't actually sit on the house. Typically, they would sit to the corner of the house. Would you agree, Mr. Crowley?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so they are going to actually be a little bit more lot coverage, but this gives you an understanding of where they will be. We also don't know the precise size of the rain barrels yet. Each rain barrel, based on the volume required and the fact that he proposes 4, each rain barrel will have to be sized to accommodate 276 gallons each. So that's bigger than your average 55-gallon drum. I did a little shopping this afternoon to try to find out what that size would be. And so there is a 265-gallon commercially available. It's approximately 3 foot round by 5 foot high, just to give you an idea of what that additional lot coverage will be. But staff feels that because it's indicated on the plan that the rain barrels are required as part of the approval, should you grant the variance tonight, it is included in the variance, the future rain barrel dimensions.
And we see the proposed drive coming up to the house on the right, and then above that, there is an existing drive. Is that going?
There's some gravel and grass there.
And that's going to go away?
Yes, sir. I'll get into it in a moment if you like, but I'll show you the planting plan. There's going to be trees and other things in that area.
It's also of note that in the IDA, there's not a lot coverage limit. It's different from the LDA and the RCA. But there's that added regulation of being required to do stormwater even when you're under 5,000 square feet of soil disturbance.
Okay.
Okay.
Macy?
We'll address the mitigation next. It has 1,991 square feet of permanent disturbance, 2,301 square feet of temporary disturbance, and 400 square feet of permanent disturbance outside of the buffer. So it will require 8,674 square feet of total mitigation. A buffer management plan for on-site plantings will be approved by staff prior to the issuance of a building permit. Okay. And then we'll go over the standards when you're ready.
Mr. Crowley.
Okay, thank you. And given that introduction, I can go through some of the parts of the presentation a bit more quickly. Would you like to pull up the
Yes.
slides, please?
Here we go.
Okay, we can go to the next slide. So brief overview, as mentioned, so we seek a variance to build the dwelling. We've already covered the lot dimensions. I'll go over how we do meet all the variance requirements. And as mentioned, we're less than 50% lot coverage for the 30 by 40 dwelling, which will be on piers and a modest deck. We're also using a sustainable, sturdy, efficient A-frame design, which uses less energy than most homes. The Critical Area Commission does not object to our plan to build. And there was a manufactured home on the lot previously that was since moved of similar coverage. And then we look forward to participating in the St. Mary's County economy, lifestyle. We bought this lot the December 2020, and I've got to know the neighbors and been spending time there with our young children. We built the dock that had the permit approved for already. Could we go to the next slide, please?
Okay.
This gives a few pictures of the lot. So you see there's no vegetation, or not much at all vegetation on the lot now. You can kind of see where the home would be located. In the middle picture with the yellow outline, that's where you can see the footprint of where the previous manufactured home and the previous deteriorating deck. And this other picture is just another image of the lot. The trees you can see there, they're not being disturbed. And we're also not disturbing at the shoreline and in fact adding quite a bit more. If we go to the next slide, please. So I'll go through these. I won't read all of this. It's in the letter in the package, but just briefly. So variance condition 1 about the special circumstances that exist here to the land. As was mentioned, the property is 99% within the critical area. It's also on a lot in a Piney Port subdivision, which was built for residences many years ago and includes county sewer hookup access. And if strict enforcement of the critical area was provided, it would be unusable for the dwelling. 2, on the strict interpretation of critical area provisions that would deprive the applicant of rights enjoyed by other properties in the critical area of St. Mary's County. It's replacing one of similar size, and it would be located in an approved subdivision. And many other property owners in the applicant's area, including the neighbors and dozens of other homes in the subdivision, as well as in similar areas throughout St. Mary's County, have dwellings similar in size or even larger in similar proximity to the water as the structure proposed. Next slide, please. Regarding the granting of variance will not confer upon the applicant any special privilege that would be denied by the critical area provision of the ordinance. So this granting of the variance will not confer any special privileges. Again, there are many other properties that have similar sized homes on the properties on similar water proximity in the same subdivision and throughout St. Mary's County. And the variance is requested based on conditions or circumstances that not caused by the applicant, so we didn't create this difficult. That subdivision for residential building was created and lots approved many years ago. And as mentioned, there has already been a home on this property that was removed by the person we purchased it from. Next, so the granting variance will not adversely affect water quality or adversely impact fish, wildlife, and plant habitat. So we've designed the home and the water management plan in a way to capture water runoff. We've had an agreement for appropriate planning, which I'll talk about momentarily. The Critical Area Commission confirmed they do not oppose in a letter September 10th. And we take our responsibility very seriously to protect and sustain the environment. And we have a long-term commitment to keeping the property in a way that does not adversely affect water quality. I'm passionate about that. My wife is very, very passionate about that. And the variance, number 6, the variance seeks the minimum necessary to achieve a reasonable use of land structures. So it's the minimum necessary to achieve reasonable use, and it's in light of other rights commonly enjoyed by property owners. And I'll say it's for our family of 4, it's only 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms with a footprint of 1,200 square feet with only modest decks, so 6 foot wide by 4 foot walkways on one side. Next slide, please. Here's the site plan again, which was already displayed. I'll just point, the driveway itself is permeable. It's on pilings. I think maybe most instructive, you'll see too that the neighboring house is of larger footprint. If we go to the next slide, this will show you, this is the proposed planting plans. You can see there's quite a bit of planting going on. I believe 16 river birches, a sycamore, a bald cypress, sweet pepper bush. These are all local native species for the planting plan. I mean, it could maybe argue that it'd be even more sort of ecologically friendly with this much planting on it versus just grass, but that's not an issue. But I do want to show you that we do have a significant planting plan, and we will maintain those trees and bushes accordingly. We've already planted quite a few high tide bushes and grasses to help shore up the shoreline as is. If we go to the next slide, please. So I think that covers our request. I'm happy to take any questions, and we look forward to making memories in Piney Point, hopefully. We've enjoyed it so far, and we plan to spend a lot more time here, hopefully. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions
Have
or
any
comments.
questions of the?
Yeah, are you able to get all the mitigation on the lot?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we get all the mitigation. There's for 2,000 square feet, there's a fee in lieu of mitigation. I think it's $3,000, but I mean about that. But for 6,800 square feet of mitigation through the significant planting of native species.
So it sounded like the answer is no, it won't all fit on the lot. I will be paying a fee in lieu for the portion that does not.
Okay.
Sir, if we have a big storm, what are you going to do with all that water?
So we're a little higher up in the neighborhood. We are on pilings, so we would avoid flooding. The 800 plus rain barrels would capture a lot, but if that was overflow, I guess it'd be similar if there was a major storm today, with or without.
So what would you do to the water after a major storm?
I think the water today eventually drains off the property.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any questions of staff?
No, Harry answered the one question I had about the 10%.
And again,
Yeah, and so basically, just to help you understand how the water will flow in more than one way on this property. It is in the floodplain. The house is required to be elevated. And so he may be more concerned with inundation at times as opposed to rainfall. But the rain barrels are rainwater harvesting, so you hold it until you need to use it. And then you would use it to water the many plants. Courts could also be used to to wash a car. And then the rain barrels will have an overflow. So if and when they reach capacity, they just automatically overflow. And then that naturally goes to the creek.
Yep.
Yeah, and thank you. And we do plan to use the rainwater harvesting to water the plants as needed on all the property.
okay. No other questions?
No, sir.
Is there anybody in the audience that'd like to speak in favor, for, or against this project? Okay, would you check the,
Yes, sir.
Board of Appeals.
Ms. Young, do we have any callers for the Crowley property tonight?
There are no calls at this time for this case.
Thank you.
Thank you.
therefore I'll close the meeting to public testimony. Comments, concerns, questions from the board members?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, I don't have any problem with this at all.
Okay, let's have a motion.
I'll make a motion. In the matter of VAAP number 21-1319, having made a finding that the standards for granting a variance and the objectives of section 24.4 of the St. Mary's County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance have been met, I approve the variance request from section 71.8.3 to disturb the critical area buffer to construct a new dwelling and driveway.
I second it.
Motion and second. Mr. Guy?
Yes.
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 All right.
As you can see, as you can see, the board has approved your project. Congratulations. It's a good job in presentation. An order reflecting the board's decision will be prepared by staff and signed by the board within 60 days. A 30-day period follows from the date the order is signed, during which any aggrieved party may appeal the board's decision to the circuit court. The recording secretary will email you a copy of the order once it has been signed. Good luck with you. Good luck with your project. Looks like a good job.
Thank you so much, board members and staff.
You'll never have a leak on that roof with that pitch.
That's all right. Have a good evening. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda, as soon as I can find it, will be the Yasden variance, VAAP 21-1863. And if we could have a presentation by staff.
Okay. Okay, our third case tonight is VAAP number 21-1863, the Yasden property. They're asking for a variance from the comprehensive zoning ordinance from section 71.8.3 to construct a replacement dwelling. The previous dwelling was destroyed by fire. The legal ad was printed in the local newspaper, Southern Maryland News, on January 7th and 14th, 2022. The county posted the property and sent notifications to the neighbors within 200 feet on or before January 12th, 2022. The property is owned by John and Julie Yasden. It is located at 41399 Phillip Lane in Leonardtown. It is in Mulberry South Subdivision, lot number 8. It is RPD, or Rural Preservation Zoning District. It has a resource conservation area overlay. It has 20,037 square feet, and it has the improvements. A previous house was destroyed by fire. Okay, it is located on the Breton Bay, just south of Leonardtown, on Phillip Lane. It is in the RPD, and these are the existing conditions prior to the fire. They are proposing a replacement house on the existing foundation, and the site plan actually has only one agency pending. The Health Department approved it today, and the Soil Conservation District has tentatively approved it.
So we did provide the board copies of emails that I solicited this afternoon. I was concerned that we didn't have soil conservation approval, but the most recent communication reads from Jane Sanders of the Soil Conservation District at 2:09 p.m. today. The 5-foot LOD, which stands for limit of disturbance, is okay if existing foundation is being used. If new foundation required, then 10-foot minimum LOD required with engineered erosion and sediment control plan. So I have spoken to both the contractor, Mr. Wayne Davis, and his agent, Steve Vaughn of LSR, and they assure me it is the intent to not construct a new foundation, but to build the replacement house on top of the existing foundation.
Okay.
Okay, and the Critical Area Commission does not oppose this variance request. Okay. As you can see, the critical area buffer encumbers the majority of the, or about half of the lot. The rear half of the lot is encumbered by the SRA, or the sewage reserve area. Here's a copy of the site plan. In detail a little bit closer. They are proposing to rebuild on the existing foundation using the existing driveway and the existing drain fields. They've got temporary and permanent disturbance. They've got the LOD, which Harry had spoken about.
Yeah, very tight.
Yes.
Yeah, very tight, 5-foot LOD, excuse me, Stacy. The orange is the permanent disturbance. Of course, that's the house, decks, et cetera. The green is the temporary disturbance. There is some disturbance and footprint of house that's not orange and green because that portion is outside the buffer. And, but they will use the existing driveway as their construction access and staging area for the construction, is the proposal.
Okay. The mitigation for this project is, for permanent disturbance, it will require 3,415 square feet. Temporary disturbance requires 1,395 square feet and 80 feet for the buffer establishment, for a total of 11,720 square feet of plantings. A major buffer management plan for on-site planning must be approved by staff prior to the issuance of a building permit. Okay. And we'll go over the standards when you're ready.
We'll hold off to that.
Hold off on, okay.
Somebody would like to come and speak for the applicant? While you're standing. Do you declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony, responses, and statements you may give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yeah.
Would you state your name and address for the record, please?
Wayne Davis, WM Davis General Contractors, representing Dr. Yasin.
Steve Vaughn, LSR, 41650 Courthouse Drive, Leonardtown, Maryland.
Please proceed. Have a seat.
Okay. So as Ms. Clements pointed out, the property is located, it is Lot 8 of Mulberry subdivision at 41399 Phillip Lane in Leonardtown. And as she also stated, it's just south of Leonardtown on Breton Bay. This is a copy of the recorded subdivision plat showing Lot 8. This subdivision was done back in 1986, I believe. And here's a copy of the site plan. And as Stacy pointed out, almost the entire house lies within the 100-foot critical area buffer, and the remainder of the property is the sewage reserve area for the existing septic and for replacement septic system area. And as we said, the house was burned down, and we are constructing it back on the existing footprint. Next slide, please. Okay, here's just a couple of photos of the site. This is just the aerial view of the site prior to the fire. And this is also a photo prior to the house burning down. And this is, of course, after the fire. And here's a picture of the sign posted and the property as it sits today. And there's just another photo of the driveway entering to the property and the signage for the posting of the property. As I said, we're going to be utilizing the existing driveway, utilizing the existing foundation, and just building the house back in its existing location of the foundation. This lot was created prior to the critical area regulations, so it was we're obviously much closer than, the 100-foot buffer. We're well within that. But we are just building back on what was already existing. And once I said, like I said, this lot was not encumbered by the critical area regulations when it was built originally. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Wayne, do you have anything to add?
I think you've pretty much covered it. Biggest thing, adding the silt fence in.
Please use a microphone.
And putting the silt fence around the house got us over about 80 square feet of additional area. So here we are.
The board members have any questions?
And are you building it's the same footprint or is it a similar house?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The only difference between the original footprint and the proposed is they're actually pulling the deck back away from the water, for what that's worth. So the proposed structure will actually encroach on the water less than the previous structure.
And same question, are you able to put all the plantings and mitigation on the lot, or?
So we do have all the plantings shown on the plan provided on the lot.
Okay.
Stacy, you want to go through the variance standards real
Yes,
quick?
I can do that.
Do we need that? We've been through it twice.
Different project.
Okay.
That's why I said quick.
Give me a moment, and I'll get it started again. There we go. Standards for granting variances in the critical area. Before the critical area variance can be granted, the board must find the following. A, that a special condition or circumstance exists that are peculiar to the land or structure involved, and that strict enforcement of the critical area provisions of this ordinance would result in unwarranted hardship. The original house, constructed in 1990, was recently destroyed by fire. The property is constrained by the critical area buffer due to the tidal waters of the Britton Bay. The existing septic system occupies the balance of the property. B, the strict interpretation of the critical area provisions of this ordinance will deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in similar areas within the critical area of St. Mary's County. The applicant is proposing to construct a replacement dwelling. C, the granting of the variance will not confer upon an applicant any special privilege that would be denied by the critical area provisions of this ordinance to other lands or structures within the critical area of St. Mary's County. The applicant is proposing to construct a replacement dwelling. The variance request is not based upon conditions or circumstances that are a result of the actions of the applicant. The applicant purchased the property in 2021 after the fire destroyed the original dwelling. E, the granting of the variance will not adversely affect water quality or adversely impact fish, wildlife, or plant habitat within the critical area, and that the granting of the variance will be in harmony with the general spirit and intent of the critical area program. The applicant will be required to mitigate the proposed development with the improved planting plan as part of the building permit process. The plantings are intended to offset any negative effects and provide improvement to water quality along with wildlife and fish habitat, plant habitat. And F, the variance is the minimum necessary to achieve a reasonable use of land or structures. The applicant is proposing to construct a replacement house. And there we go.
Very well.
Any questions?
Any other questions?
No questions.
Any questions from the audience? Would you check with Sherry, please?
Reach out.
Board of Appeals.
Yes, Ms. Young, do we have any callers for the Yazden property?
There are no callers at this time for that case.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I'll close the meeting to public testimony and open it up to the board's questions, comments, discussions, or motion.
It's in my neighborhood, and the burned-out house is an eyesore, and the building on the original foundation, I think, is a wonderful idea.
Your motion?
Okay. In the matter of VAAP number 21-1863, having made a finding that the standards for granting a variance and the objectives of sections 24.4 of the St. Mary's County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance have been met, I move we approve the variance request from section 71.8.3 to disturb the critical area buffer to construct a new dwelling within the existing footprint of the previous dwelling, which was destroyed by fire.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Bradley? Yes?
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
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 Okay, the motion carries. An order reflecting the board's decision will be prepared by staff and signed by the board within 60 days. A 30-day period follows from the date the order is signed, during which any aggrieved party may appeal the board's decision to the circuit court. The recording secretary will email you a copy of the order when it has been signed. Good luck. Proceed quickly.
Thank you very much. Would like to say one thing. Dr. Yazdan just recently opened his new dental business over a year ago, moving from Calvert County to Leonardtown. And so he's moved from Calvert here to be a new citizen in St. Mary's.
So he's moving into this building. That's going to be his home?
Pardon?
Is this going to be his home?
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Thanks, guys. The next item we have on the agenda is Sims variance, VAAP 21-1886. And with that, I will ask staff to give the presentation.
Yeah, do you want to come forward? This is Mr. Sims, the applicant.
Would you like to raise your right hand and read? You declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony, responses, and statements you may give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Are you related to, are you Johnny Sims from insurance?
Oh, yeah.
You know the Macalusos?
Dad, yes. So I hope we had a positive relationship with them.
Macalusos?
Pardon me?
You know the Macalusos?
I thought you said Sims, John
Yeah,
Shields.
yeah, I understand that, but do you also remember the Macalusos?
The name does not ring a bell.
Okay. Fine.
Have a seat.
Stacy, if you'd go forward.
Here we go. Our next hearing or case is, it's pulled up, there we go. It's VAAP 21-1886, the Sims property. They are requesting a variance from the comprehensive zoning ordinance from section 71.8.3 to regrade 585 square feet of an existing riparian access road using 190 square feet of soil from an adjacent vegetated and eroding bank. Okay, legal ad was printed in local newspaper, Southern Maryland News, on January 7th and 14th, 2022. The county posted the property and sent notifications to neighbors within 200 feet on or before January 12th, 2022. The property is owned by John and Kristen Sims. It is located at 47040 Christiana Lane in Drayton. It is in the RPD, and it has an RCA, or a Resource Conservation Area overlay. The property consists of 3 acres, has a house with an attached and detached garages. It is located on the St. Mary's River on the west bank, east of Drayton. It is in the RPD zoning district. There are existing conditions of the property. We've got the house with the attached garage. The proposed access, or the access is right in here. They're proposing to regrade 585 square feet of an existing riparian access road. Stormwater Management and Soil Conservation District issued exemptions, and the Critical Area Commission provided a letter. The subject property is encumbered by the critical area buffer on two sides due to the river and tidal wetlands. And this is their proposed site plan. And what they're proposing is to repair this existing access by using dirt from these slope in the red. Okay, right here is where the tidal wetlands are located, and this is the river.
Well, so the red area is already eroding. It has very poor quality vegetation because the soil within the root area is eroding towards the river, and so it's going to collapse and fall, similar to other things we heard about of properties along the St. Mary's River. So the applicant is proposing to go ahead and cut it and then spread it where he needs to replace eroded area from this pathway. It's an old farm road. This was the family farm, and it was subdivided into Christiana Farm, and he is Lot 1 of Christiana Farm.
Okay. The mitigation required for this project, for permanent disturbance, it will require 190 square feet, 665 square feet of temporary disturbance, and 190 square feet for canopy removal, for a total of 1,425 square feet of plantings. A buffer management plan will be required and approved by staff prior to the issuance of a building permit. Okay. Any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Looking at the picture, I went on Google Earth to see if I could see where the road is going down to the water, and I couldn't see a road going to the water.
I have some pictures I can show you when we get to my slide. It'll show. I have some pictures in my slides that'll show the old farm road.
Could you show it to us on the map on the?
So if you're ready, she'll do his presentation.
Right.
And then he thinks in his presentation, you'll see what you're looking for.
Fine.
Okay, Mr. Sims, go ahead.
Okay.
Hold on just a moment. Okay. I'm trying to minimize escape. And minimize that one. And there we go.
You can skip past the cover page.
Okay, there we go.
So again, the site plan, and you'll just kind of call out some things. You'll notice the blue dots there on the right side. That's an existing stone riprap that was put there years ago for a mitigation along my property as well as my father's property, which I adjoin. The green, again, like we talked about, is an old farm road, and all I want to do is take this red bluff that is eroding, and you'll see that kind of felt for the earlier person across the river, with her erosion. I felt very similar situation, different solutions, common problem. We will then top dress the new topsoil, seed and straw, promote good grass growth, give a nice, safe, accessible, maintain the dirt, keep it from going into the river. No work will be performed in any of the tidal waters. The red does contain some trees. There's about 10. Several of them are already dead because they're losing the dirt. Many of them have exposed root balls that, because we had so much erosion, you're going to see that too. They're going to slide. When they slide, they take more dirt with them. They just exacerbate the problem. So go to the next slide, please.
Yes, sir.
Again, why we're looking for this variance request, we have a large amount of water that gets funneled there. And if you really look at the topological, I can't say that word, the maps, you can actually see where it's cupped and it funnels to this old farm road and over the bank. We're losing several feet. It erodes. It's about a 20-foot high cliff, I'm estimating. And when it grows, huge chunks go, again, similar to the case you heard earlier. You'll see exposed roots. The existing farm road provides access to the river. I don't think it's safe access. You know, with the ruts and everything that keep coming, you can fill them with dirt and they just rut out again. You know, just again, maintaining for my family and my future family down the road that hopefully will take over my property, you know, just making sure that we maintain accessibility to the river. This is my only accessibility to the river. Everything else is the cliff across the whole other part of the property. Next slide, please. Here's the old farm road. You can see my house in the background. The picture does not do justice for how steep it is, but it does provide access. You can see that, you know, the grass can't sustain. I think it was put in with old St. Mary's County bank gravel that, you know, probably mined here somewhere. Everybody that's done anything around here knows about bank gravel. And again, like I said before, the slope of that backyard is funneling down there and over the bank. And if we go to the next slide, please. As you can see here, as it comes over the bank, I mean, I'm just losing all the dirt. The trees are feet extended. And, you know, they're large trees and they're large root balls. And then if you go to the next slide, eventually this is the end product. The dirt goes into the river with erosion, the trees fall in. And this bluff is going to go. It's going to end up in the river. It's either I take it or Mother Nature takes it. And, you know, I feel like I've talked to engineers, feel like we can get this repurposed and get something that's stabilized, it's grassed, it's more sloped, has some good mitigation. Next slide, please. So Soil Conservation actually came out and did a site review as part of their approval process. They pointed out some things that I had noticed, that the way the backyard was sloping, is funneling it there. It's just a product of the way the lot is designed or the way, you know, it's built, you know, God's plan. He actually said it would be a positive improvement to do this and suggested a few things that maybe we could consider in the future, but I didn't want to exacerbate this. Did ask for like a slope, as I regrade it, still leave the slope a little higher on the riverside, so rain is not going towards the river, it's going back towards the trees, which then go into that creek, and you've got some natural mitigation if we do that sloping, which I have no problem implementing. Does want silt fence and erosion control matting on it until it gets stabilized. Again, no problem with doing that. I know I have to plant the trees to meet them. I've already submitted my buffer management plan, and according to the portal, I believe it's approved. So I think that's not a problem.
Okay.
That's all I have in my slide deck.
Okay.
And I hope I answered your question about the farm road.
Yes, sir.
Board members have any questions?
No.
No, sir.
For staff,
Staff?
yeah, this one's for staff, not necessarily for. So the Critical Area Commission normally says they don't oppose or they do oppose. This time they sent a letter. Reading through the letter, it doesn't look like there's anything other than helping us.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Sorry. So was there anything in this letter that we need to pay attention to or would impact this case in a negative way?
Well, they acknowledged what the request is. The applicant's proposing to regrade, so on and so forth. And then the second paragraph is, in order to grant this variance, the mitigation is required, and that you must find the unwarranted hardship standards. And then that the planting has to be on site in the buffer. So, I mean, they didn't say yay or nay. They said you have the power and you have to find the standards. Mr. Sims, as he said in his testimony, and I think his pictures show quite clearly, he has erosion issues. He has trees falling in the river. He has a bank that's going to fall anyway, whether he does anything or not. He has a road that has eroding ruts, and so he could propose to bring fill dirt from offsite, but he took the time to ask the Soil Conservation District, the experts on the subject, to please visit my property, which they did. They gave him good technical advice, and they said what he's proposing and what's been presented tonight is good from soil conservation, sediment erosion control perspective. And I hope that answers your question.
Well, it's just that the Critical Area Commission usually says, we do not oppose. They took the step to provide a letter. It's something different. I just want to make sure by doing that they haven't
Well, they definitely, when they oppose, they definitely say they do oppose, and they write several pages worth, and they actually name standard by standard why they don't think it meets the standards. I would say perhaps they just were in a hurry and didn't type that extra phrase.
Okay, copy.
Do you remember who came out from Soil Conservation?
I believe I have his name here in my file, if you'll indulge me a minute. I think it's the head gentleman of
Can you describe him? Was he a large gentleman?
Hang on.
I mean, compared to me, tall and...
Yes, he was taller than you.
Yeah. I mean, more than likely it was Bruce Young. That's who usually goes out. There you go. I mean, yeah.
Just needed the tickler.
Yeah, he's the expert.
I agree. He is an expert. He does a really good job.
Any other questions?
When you move the dirt over, you think you can stabilize it enough that it won't wash away in the next big storm?
Well, I'm planning to put matting there, the stuff that they use after they grade, the contractor will put that in there to stabilize it. I mean, it's proven to be used in a lot of other applications, so I have to trust the material that they're using. Bruce also said, do the silt fence. He said, you're in such a tight space, get in there, do the work quickly, get the silt fence up, as a secondary remediation as well, or secondary protection.
Okay, thank you.
And did Mr. Young suggest you do something with the backyard also, as far as?
He was saying that maybe I would want to start to look at resloping some of that or putting a swale at the top. But again, I was trying to limit my amount of disturbance, so.
Maybe with some of your plantings or whatnot, you could address some of it?
Maybe. I am trying to put the plantings right at, and what I submitted was right above where I'm exposing, which I think will also help to stabilize and, again, slow the water down. That's what I guess our goal is.
Very good. Any other questions? Are you all comfortable in saying that you have gone through the standards tonight and this project meets the standards?
Yes.
Very good. Then I think we're ready for a motion.
No, there's no public here, but
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Public, you want to check?
I can definitely check the phones.
Are you opening the public record?
Yes.
Board of Appeals.
Yes, Ms. Young, do we have any callers for the Sims property case?
There are no callers at this time for this case.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Then I'll close the meeting to public comment. Any comments from the board? Questions, concerns?
no, I'm good.
Motion.
Yes. In the matter of VAAP number 21-1886, having made a finding that the standards for granting a variance and the objectives of Section 24.4 of the St. Mary's County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance have been met, I approve the variance request from Section 71.8.3 to disturb the critical area buffer to regrade 585 square feet of the existing, I can't pronounce that word, access road using 190 square foot of soil from the adjacent vegetated bank.
I'll second.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. An order reflecting the board's decision will be prepared by staff and signed by the board within 60 days. A 30-day period follows from that date. The order is signed, during which any aggrieved party may appeal the board's decision to circuit court. The recording secretary will email you a copy of the order once it has been signed. Good luck with your project.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, good luck.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you. Excuse me. So do you know my parents?
I don't know, did they, the Millses,
You said Sims Insurance, I thought earlier.
right?
Yeah, my mom started Sims Insurance, and then my dad went to work there when he retired from the state police.
Right, and then I think they had relations, they had related to the Millses.
Yes, there is some relationship there to the Mills, as they live
Right.
there in, I guess that's Valley Lee.
And my wife always tells me about the relationship. They went to Deep Creek Lake all the time, so that's where it all leads to.
Gotcha. connecting the dots now.
It's a good thing.
It's a small world.
Right.
Thank you all. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. The next item I think I have on the agenda is the January 13th, 2022 Board of Appeals meeting minutes. Have we all had a chance to take a look at them? Have we gotten them? Yes, no?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I've seen them.
Now I'll take a motion to approve them.
Was the Dollar General?
No, wait a minute. We're just talking about the meetings right now.
Yeah,
I'm talking
minutes
about the
first.
minutes.
Yeah, I make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, ayes have it. The next item I have on the agenda is the Brackett subdivision appeal, which I guess will be re-prepared and presented at the next meeting.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Then we have the Gwynn appeal of Klug property events order. And we have that that was transmitted ahead of time.
I didn't have any problem with that. I'll make a motion to sign the order.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Now, we did have problems with the Dollar General. Did we redo some of that?
No, not that I know.
No, I haven't had a chance to talk to Neil about that.
What have you been doing?
Keeping an eye on you all.
Fuck on that.
Keep you busy.
Full-time job.
We can't approve what we have.
That's right.
So we can, we've got a couple clerical errors in it.
Yeah.
Can we approve it based on the changes to be made? I think we've done that in the past.
Yeah, if you specify the changes and say that you authorize the chairman to sign the order upon verification that the changes were made, and then the chairman would verify those changes prior to signing.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
And if we would just list what those changes are.
exactly.
Yeah, this one, let me know. And that's for Dollar General.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you identify the necessary clerical changes, staff will make those changes and get the order to the chairman at our earliest opportunity.
I pointed them out, but I'm.
Yeah, so the first
Right
one,
this second.
1285, the voting to approve the concept plan is incorrect. So the three listed as approving were actually to voting to deny the concept plan. The two that voted to deny actually voted to approve, so that needs to be swapped.
so yeah, that just needs to be flip-flopped. And then page 8, after the word or the heading decision, first line, there's a word missing. It says, upon review of the facts and circumstances, comma, the denies, and that should say the board denies.
Okay,
A missing word there.
Okay.
82.
Oh, you read it.
Okay, and then I don't see the other two, Hodgkins and King order or the Potee order.
They were not ready, but it's also not 60 days yet.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
but we don't,
They were on an early agenda, but in the final agenda, they are not reflected as being on the agenda for tonight. So sorry about the confusion.
okay.
But first and foremost, I'll make a motion, we approve the Dollar General order with corrections.
Corrections.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anything for the good of the cause?
No, wait a minute. What do we got coming up? We got, what, meeting February 10th and 17th?
Correct. On February 10th, you have another new house in the critical area and non-tidal wetland buffer on St. George's Island. And you have another variance requesting development, but unfortunately, they purchased property that had after-the-fact unpermitted development in the critical area buffer, which is a violation that must be mitigated prior to the hearing. So they will request a continuance. And then the third case on February 10th is an expansion of an existing conditional use gravel mine.
Would you say that again, please?
The third case is an expansion of an existing conditional use gravel mine, the AAA gravel mine on St. Andrews Church Road. They simply want to expand their operation.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the cause?
Oh, wait a minute.
Well, and then February 17th
Yes.
is the critical area after the fact lot coverage variance that was opened and requested the continuance to February 17th due to the legal complexity of the case.
Well said.
So I'm told, yes.
And what we also have scheduled for that same night is another after-the-fact critical area variance that if they can get their mitigation, we just agreed to the mitigation this afternoon, if they can get that mitigation planted between now and open of hearing, then you can hear it. If the mitigation does not pass inspection, when you open the hearing, I will tell you you cannot legally hear the case.
Okay.
Now make a motion to adjourn.
We're still on anything good for the order. And what I would say is I would like to thank you all for your good wishes from missing 2 weeks ago.
Glad to have you back.
Well, thank you.
And thanks for being
Now
flexible.
we'll take your motion.
Thanks for being flexible when I had
Second.
emergency leave.
Favor? Aye. Thank you all.